Hello, and welcome to our latest Kinetic Session. I'm Kingsley Johnson, and each week I invite elite athletes, business owners, and thought leaders to share their strategies, techniques, and ideas to achieve more. The purpose of these sessions is to provide a little inspiration to help us all navigate these exceptional times. At Kinetic PD, our team of world-class athletes and business trainers help organizations embed the psychology of elite sport in their teams. And we do this to drive high performance and well-being at work. Our interactive workshops, professional coaching programs, and recruitment support services all help to embed the behaviors, attitudes, and mindsets to achieve more. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our session and enjoy. In today's Kinetic Session, I'm joined by John Dooner of DY3 Solutions. John started his career as a teacher and went on to become a Behavioural Support Head of a local authority. With a degree in psychology and a postgrad in education management psychology, John now designs and delivers high-level workplace skills, conflict resolution, and mediation programs. His wealth of experience and insight on human behaviour and coaching ensured this was an educational and inspiring session. John's humour and ability to make complex concepts seem straightforward means anyone interested in the impact a healthy internal narrative can have on us as individuals and the people we work with is in for a treat. I also quizzed John for his thoughts on how organisations can look to counter the negativity of COVID by leveraging the positive stories of innovation and community within their businesses to inspire teams. John, thank you so much for joining us today to discuss your thoughts on narratives and the impact they can have on all of our lives. And I just wanted to really welcome you to today's Kinetic Session.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm looking forward to it.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So to begin, what I always like to do is I always invite my guests to share a little bit about themselves and what they do, and if you'd be kind enough to let us know a little bit about you.
Okay, right. I suppose I'm into developmental coaching. That's the first bit of it, and that's with teams, organisations, or individuals. And my journey there is quite an interesting one. I'm also a qualified mediator, and there's a kind of a shared skill set there. My background is in education. In 1976, I started up as a drama teacher in a school with, it had its challenges. Moved into working in special education needs, again with challenging young people. Then from there, a couple of years maybe in local government administration. After that, moved on. I was head teacher of a couple of pupil referral units. So again, working with young people who maybe hadn't had the easiest of tracks through life there, and then into again local authority administration, looking after services that were supporting children and families in need. And then it's early in the 2000s, the way local government was going, I felt I needed to change my career path. It was exactly the right time to do it. Started off working in education, and then colleagues who'd worked with me in a variety of contexts started phoning me saying, "Is there something you could do for us here, John?" So I decided then to develop my coaching pathway, and that's what, to cut a very long story short, brings us here in 2020. Yeah.
Fantastic, and a lovely insight into your experience and also where you try to make as much impact as possible.
Thanks.
Wonderful. So you strike me as someone who I believe loves the power of narratives.
Yeah.
I wonder if you'd be kind enough to let us know where this comes from.
All right. Well, as a child, I was very good at writing stories, and I managed to sort of engage a whole class. That was in primary school of writing a story a page a day. When's the next page? When's the next page? Oh, yeah, this is pretty good. And so move on through secondary education, and then a bit of a challenging time in my adolescence before I decided to sort it out and train as a teacher. The young people I ended up working with, I found there was a a real solid truth that everyone's got a backstory. And whereas there was a real emphasis on dealing with the behaviour of the child, which in those days, and we're talking sort of late 70s, early 80s, was very much discipline punishment led. I wanted to sort of get into the backstory. What's this kid's internal narrative? What's going on here? Not as a way of getting some sort of very soft, well, you have to understand them, but it was actually a way of building up trust with that young person, so that we could then say, look, all that set it to one side, and my understanding of where you come from here, how does that fit into where you want to go? So I wanted to make it very clear that you can't know where you're going unless you've got some idea of where you've been and what's got you there. And I found it a very powerful way of engaging with some pretty messed up kids. And you know, you would see these young people around school during the day, 1,000 people in the school, and you say, look at what that one's doing. But from developing the narrative, you're able to sort of say, yes, but look what's been done to that one, or look at what that one's experiencing when they go home. And I would say you'd have to be a pretty kind of soulless and heartless human being not to sort of say, well, actually, yeah, that does help me reframe the way I see people. So part of the use of narrative for me has been about the way we reframe our view of people, and how we can then maybe use that as quite a powerful developmental tool.
Wonderful. And that is so powerful in what you said about understanding or showing empathy as well, to have an appreciation of what the individual has gone through, rather than just making that immediate judgment based on behaviors or reactions, and looking at it in terms of how you can help that individual to get to where they want to be. Because like you say, we all have varying experiences, and in many cases that can define our vision of ourselves and where we can get to. And I love what you said about taking that effort, that time to help individuals to move to where they want to get to.
Yeah, I would challenge anybody to take a look at a school punishment book from maybe the sort of late 70s, early 80s, and just see, it's the same runners and riders. And I think, can we just maybe not carry on doing this? But there we are. It wasn't always well received, but for me, it worked as a very powerful platform. And I think we also have to remember, Kingsley, that in terms of developing personal authenticity, that you are a listener, particularly with someone who isn't used to being heard. It elevates them to a point of saying, you remembered, or wow, you gave me that space. And it's a gift that doesn't cost anything, but it's of such value. I end up asking myself, well, why wouldn't you do it? Yeah.
So at Kinetic PD, we use the psychology of elite sport to help people to achieve more. And all of our athletes in the team stress the importance of positive self-talk. And I wondered if you could share some of your thoughts on the impact of having a healthy internal narrative.
Thanks. Yeah, it is huge, isn't it? I think healthy is probably the concept I'd like to dwell on. In that, for a healthy internal narrative, I think there has to be a degree of acceptance as well. So this isn't a kind of a blue sky, Mary Poppins, everything is great here about me and everything I do. It's about a realistic self-appraisal, and maybe being able to take a look at key events in our lives that might have affected us, and to ask ourselves and say, what was really, really going on there? So that I'm not listening to a narrative that's been donated to me by somebody else. I'm not letting my ego get in front of my interpretation of the events. I want to see if I can get to a point where I'm able to say, to the best of my knowledge and understanding, that's how I now interpret that event, and I can now reframe its outcomes and their impacts. So positivity, It's not, as I've already said, it's not for me about it's blue sky, everything in the world is wonderful. I think positivity is about developing the capacity to take a look at events and to frame them in a way that we can learn from them and develop from them. Otherwise, that positivity becomes a bit of a panacea. Oh, don't worry, it will be all right. And I end up saying, well, what will be all right? Because unless we've got an idea of what went on, I think you just got to end up fixing the wrong wheel here. So it's sort of can we have a bit of a sort of reflective analysis or a reflective conversation about what went on? And in that conversation, I think the skill is, whether that's self-talk or whether it's in a relationship with somebody else, with a coach or a peer, I think the skill is being able to pick up those key words, those key moments that actually enable us to go, oh, right, hang on a minute, let me just run with that one for a little while and see where that takes us. So, yes, absolutely. And I think the power of the positive narrative enables us to access what have we done before that was like this. And that's particularly important, I think, at times when of uncertainty, when we might be moving on to something new, or where we've had a setback, where we've had a challenge. And I've done a bit of work with one of the England rugby coaches, and they have a session where all the coaches have to bring 2 successes and 1 failure that they've had. If you don't turn up with a failure, you get a financial fine as cost. And guess where the learning takes place? It takes place when we talk about the failure, because you've got a group of people saying, well, we could have. And nobody's saying you should have. It's saying, have you thought about it? Maybe it's this way. So when we're talking about developing a strong narrative, I'd just like to return to my point. It's about developing a healthy self-awareness, good learning opportunities, good self-teaching opportunities, and then maybe synthesizing that into how you drive yourself forward and how you can create that sort of space in which you can perform to the best of your abilities. Now, whether that's as a high-performing athlete, whether that's maybe somebody who's running a company, or maybe that's somebody who is in the creative industries who just wants to take themselves a bit further. I think the argument stands.
Wonderful, and yes, such powerful insight there as well. And so, what you described in terms of that realistic approach and looking at it in terms of what can we learn and develop, it reminds me of a documentary that I recently saw called Finding Joe, which references the hero's journey. But rather than our stories being on that linear path, it speaks to what you literally just said just then, in terms of it's more of a circle. So that challenge, that learning, that achievement, but then also sharing what you've learned on your journey, as it were.
Yeah.
So I wonder, do you agree with this perspective? And do you have any thoughts as well?
Massively so, yeah. And when I saw that, I'm just looking around there as if I can find the book. Yes, here it is. Bear with me a moment. Right. When I saw that, that is just great, because it's so hugely important to me that we see learning development as a series of interrelated spirals that come together in 3 dimensions. Well, what do I mean by that? I think we've already touched it. It's not linear. They are spirals, and I think we can make those sort of almost personalised active learning spirals. What have I picked up from this? What am I carrying forward? But also to accept that it's not going to be linear progression. There's going to be a series of opportunities, a series of challenges that we've got with us if we can pay attention to what it is we're experiencing, to what it is we're learning, and an opportunity to literally verbalise that. I think what we're actually doing is building up our own resource library to say, okay, yeah, one of the questions I use in coaching is, well, what was it like? And the powerful word is there, like. What is it similar to? When did you feel this way before? When did you experience these emotions? And what I'm actually doing at that point is tapping people into their survival strategies, or into their coping strategies, or into the sort of strategy that says, actually what I did was I just cooled my engines down for 2 days and thought, you know what, I'll come back and have a look at this later. And I don't really mind what it is. For me at that moment, the system is what works, as long as it's not illegal. But there was certainly that kind of idea of, I really like that idea of the spiral, and how it allows us, if you like, a little bit of an opportunity to sort of say, what's happened here is I'm somewhere else on the spiral. I haven't fallen off a ladder. I haven't crashed to the ground there. I was just maybe journeyed in the direction I wouldn't have travelled anyway. And if you're okay to carry out a book that I refer to time and time again, here we go, Humble Inquiry by Edgar Schein. And in that point, in that book, one of the points he makes is that major disasters that have happened throughout the world, including Chernobyl, the Gulf of Texas oil spill, the Challenger space shuttle disaster, somebody in the chain knew that this was a vulnerability, but they felt they hadn't got the power, or it would jeopardize their role in the company. If they mentioned it, they might get into trouble. And look what happened. Well, I think, we all carry around with us our personal vulnerabilities, that if we don't tell our story, we don't hear ourselves describe what they are. And if we can describe what they are, we've probably got a bit of a chance to do something about it, or to reach out and get some help. So that whole feeling for me is generated around reflection, self-kindness, acceptance, and what have we learned that helps us move forward here.
Amazing. And thank you, John. Really, really fascinating insight there as well. So the past 6 months, there's been stories in the news, we've heard stories in our business communities and also in our personal lives of that element of community spirit and people coming together.
Yeah.
And I wondered if there was anything that organizations or business leaders could be doing to maybe record and share and use some of those narratives around that community spirit or innovation. What are some of the things that we can take from the COVID situation, but use in a more positive light, as opposed to what we're currently seeing in lots of news outlets and social media?
Yeah, right. I spoke earlier and said that organisational developmental work, and one of the approaches I use is appreciative inquiry. It's so much more hopeful. In one you can't fix the past, and you really are going to injure yourself if you try. It will hold you there. So how do we develop a narrative that gives us a hopeful future? Well, in the use of appreciative inquiry, that whole notion of dream, discuss, design, deliver, so massively powerful. So what could we do now? We could actually, as companies, as individuals, as support teams, okay, what is it that we have learned from the community experience that describes for us the best we can be? And if we could take that element of the best we could be, not only as individuals, but as individuals who connect to each other and have helped each other or have received help from each other, how does that fit our business model? And I really am, I guess, moving into the areas of servant leadership there, because actually we are in stewardship. We own nothing. We are actually in stewardship of something that we are paying forward. So how does the learning of the past 6 months and the positive things that have happened there, the things that have been, I think, quite emotional to witness, really. But what can we take from that enables us to describe a higher and better ground? Now, we might have to accept, look, we're going to have to go into a bit of a valley before we get to that higher and better ground. And we've got some choices here. We can either focus on how deep the valley is and how awful it is, or we can actually begin to construct a dialogue that says, when we get out of this, what is our higher ground going to look like? And it would then be, I wouldn't really mind how big or small the organisation is or what section of the organisation is. Can we now begin to co-design what that higher ground might look like? What will be going on there? What conversations will be taking place? And then can we have that maybe, if we were to develop that, what might a developmental sequence look like? And most importantly is, what is our commitment to doing this? Because if we haven't got a commitment to doing it, let's not bother. Let's just stay in the hole and find out what happens. But and I have a view, it ain't going to be good. But if we are able to describe what we have experienced and how we can carry that forward, that enables us to look to that higher ground, to incorporate the multitude of experiences people have had as individuals, and to use that to inspire, to build hope, but to do it in an authentic manner that said we are committed to this and we will do it, then I think that's a massive thing for organisations to be taking forward.
And I absolutely love what you mentioned about that idea of being the best that we can be and looking forward to what that higher ground can look like.
Yeah.
But equally, like you say, that genuine commitment to getting there, because there's no point in playing lip service, as we're seeing in lots of different examples, if you're not really committed to affecting that change.
Yeah. You're better off not starting than doing that, and then say, oh, it's just a bit of an exercise, really. Oh, thanks for that, because credibility just plummets, doesn't it? So, yeah.
Absolutely amazing, John. I could talk to you all day.
yeah.
Listen to you all day, I should say. I love hearing your insights. So I've got 3 final questions for you, and I call these the famous 3. Okay, and sort of put you on the spot a little bit.
Good.
So I was hoping you could share the most influential book that you've ever read.
The most influential book I have ever read. Whoa. Let me just take a look. I would think, you must have had this one come out so many times. It is The Lord of the Rings, because it takes us from a place of everything's all right to actually everything is seriously not all right. And you're going to find out some stuff about yourself and about others that you didn't know was there, good and bad. But the purpose of your journey transcends any of the obstacles that might get in your way, because we are countering an overwhelming force of evil. So when I take that and apply it to particularly now, but when I first read The Lord of the Rings, it was at a time that the whole of the country was just crashing into industrial turmoil and social strife, and it was a great inspiration for me, thinking that actually you can do something with a team of people around you, sort of fellowship, and you can, if you have that single clarity of purpose. Frodo, put the ring into the crack of doom, then we'll all be all right. If you've got that clarity of purpose, chances are that you're going to make it, and you will find that help and assistance comes from some really unusual suspects. So it was pivotal, really, in bringing together, gluing together parts of that narrative that I think I was already carrying. So, yeah.
That's wonderful, and that's the first time any of my guests have mentioned Lord of the Rings, and
that's good.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Yeah,
thank you.
Amazing. So, proudest achievement to date?
Well, my 3 kids. Just they are good human beings. Pretty straight right now.
And
and finishing my first marathon.
Okay.
Yeah. That's pretty much up there. Yeah. I'm a big, heavy guy, always was, So the lightest I could ever get to was around about 14.8, 14.10, and that's not a good marathon running weight, but I've got around. So yeah.
Congratulations and well done.
Thank you.
And finally, what type of world would you like to live in?
I would like to live in a world where we could understand that toxic growth is killing our planet, and that we need to place some sort of ceiling on that. And if we were to do that, we could redistribute wealth and resources to such a degree that it would become, over a period of time, a panacea to many of the challenges that we're facing now. So if populations felt that there was hope for them staying where they were, that there was an economic hope for them staying where they were, and that they could maybe ensure that their land would not flood because of some of the issues that come with climate change, that they could actually build their defences, they could build their communities, they could build their cities and their infrastructure, supported by the money created in the Western economy. I think that global view of we have to have some sort of idea of the ceiling of growth that eliminates toxicity from the equation. So it almost becomes like a growth donut rather than a growth curve. And so I do look around and think, gosh, is this a future we're handing on? But I think there's a need to challenge the whole concept. Not that wealth is wrong, but the manner in which wealth is acquired and distributed needs to be stood up for some inquiry, and particularly the distribution of it. This isn't about some sort of Marxist-Leninist view. It's actually about the kind of, if we want a fair and just world, we have to behave in a fair and just way. And you cannot point the finger at whole populations who are struggling, and then what happens as a result of that, and say that's wrong, without sort of reflecting on, well, what have we done to contribute to the conditions that have made that wrong? So that's the kind of world I would love to live in. One where we have a very strong narrative about why we're here, what's our purpose, and how we help each other. Yeah.
Exactly. Wonderful, John. Thank you so much for your time today.
It's perfect. Thank you very much, Kingsley. I've really enjoyed it.
We thoroughly enjoyed making this session, and for more information on our guest speakers, please see the links in the description. And to learn more about the Kinetic PD team and how we help organisations embed the psychology of elite sport in their teams, visit our website at kineticpd.co.uk. And it just leaves me to say, we are stronger together, enjoy the journey, and stay safe.